Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Tasty Tidbits Podcast. Get ready to receive rich, well-seasoned, and tasteful tidbits to transform your life. Each week, Dr. Tiffany comes to you with inspirational encouragement and thought-provoking interviews to help you revolutionize your walk with God. Are you hungry for more of His presence? Then get ready. And now, your host, pastor, author, and motivational speaker, Dr. Tiffany Watkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Tasty Tidbits. I am your host, Dr. Tiffany Watkins. I am so excited that you decided to tune in again today for another episode. I'm so excited today to have with me Khristopher, and we're going to be interviewing him today on some information that I believe that will be helpful for you, that I'm even interested in, because we have been dealing with a lot of these particular issues in our neighborhoods, as well as I know that you've probably come across in your neighborhoods and in your community. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Khristopher, and we're going to go into this episode. Khristopher Blue is a therapist who is on the front lines regarding mental health and addictions treatment. The nonprofit program he founded, called More Than Therapy, is addressing the gaps in treatment and assisting clinicians to get the tools that they need to succeed, offering support and guidance so they can better address the challenges in this field, as well as avoid burnout. He's also a person who has impacted the mental health disorder, as his mother had the same diagnosis. He has worked to develop most cost-effective strategies to assist those impacted by the mental health symptoms and recover appropriately. And Khristopher has done so many other things, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that. But hello, Khristopher, and thank you for being a part of our podcast. You know, I'm so glad that you are able to be here with the listeners today. So how are you? And just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I'm well, and thank you for having me on your special edition of this episode, this podcast. I'm really honored for the guest appearance. I'm, just a normal guy who just happens to have a degree in mental health counseling. I am the everyday Joe. I'm the everyday guy. I'm the guy you meet in Harris Teeter, and he says, "Excuse me," as he moves his buggy down the aisle.
Right.
People want to put therapists and clinicians and the people in the helping field on this pedestal. No, we're common folk like you with just a special skill set or experience or a job or a career that is deemed to assist and help you. I think that people oftentimes don't want to get help from people that they feel doesn't understand where they came from. And that's mainly the reason why I sought out to do therapy in this way, because I remember when, I had an incident and I had to get mental health stabilization. It was not the best experience. I remember when my mother had her own significant mental health breakdown and she did not get the best experience. I remember when my sister had her own issues and my mom thought she needed mental health stabilization and her not getting the best outcome because of it, because people didn't have the understanding of our culture or didn't have the understanding of where we were coming from or what we were going through, because it didn't reflect their own values or their own stance in the community. I wanted to be what I wanted to receive. I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see. I wanted to be that which would be if I happened to be on the other side of that desk or those person's shoes.
Right.
That's what I strive to be every day, every single day, because we are only as good as that which we give. And I strongly affirm to this belief called Ubuntu. I am because we are, you know what I'm saying? And we have to be together.
That is so true. And it's just such a blessing and an honor to have you today. And, today on this episode, we're going to be talking about a subject that can be correlated, which is mental health, gangs, and drugs, because they can correlate and go all together. So before we get started, just tell us a little bit about your story of how you overcame the trauma of your mother's drug addiction. I know that had to be a very challenging situation.
Right. My mom, she got divorced from my father. She wasn't well, and I guess she coped by, whatever means she happens to cope, maladaptive
Mm-hmm.
and addictive behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst to her children at the time, but we might have seen some, what do we know about drugs? Our community doesn't really teach us these things. The only thing we know about drugs are the zombies we see with the needles on the train track on the other side of the town or on our way to school. We didn't necessarily understand that people can walk around and be functioning addicts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or people
Mm-hmm.
can walk around and be as addicted as anything, but they were still able to at least have some remnants of a normalcy or a normal
Mm-hmm.
life, or they took care of
Mm-hmm.
their children. So in
Mm-hmm.
many ways, my mom's addiction didn't really impact us. We still had clothes on our back. We still had food in our refrigerators. We still had the means to get back and forth to school. We still had clean hair and brushed hair and cut hair and styled hair. But her mannerisms, her behaviors were erratic, and that's where the addiction probably was taking place, in which she physically disciplined or she was emotionally abusive, and the impact that had on our wellness, and actually probably was antecedents for our own mental health issues as well as our addiction issues that might have played out later. I sought refuge with peers. I sought refuge with people that didn't judge me because their background was just as messed up in some ways. Their mom probably was what we used to call zombies, where people would just be so zoned out on crack or heroin and just walk the streets aimlessly, looking messy with a dazed look in their eyes, disparaging terms we might have used before we understood, the plight of what addiction was and why people might have chose that path or why it might have been chosen for them, because who would choose to be an addict? You know what I'm saying? Oftentimes we're numbing our pain or we're trying to escape something. Not so much that, we just want to party and BS. I know you have a Christian podcast, so I'll definitely try to limit my West Coast language. And that's that, and
Yeah.
just to understand and have a better perspective of what needs to be done and how to do it, and making sure that we're not using cookie cutter means to help people. But like I said, I was in these gangs and I was doing drugs and I was doing maladaptive behaviors and I was lashing out and hurting a community that was already suffering based on what was going on in our community. And then when my brother, he was killed, I lashed out even more because I blamed everybody but myself. And then turned around and blamed myself, using that blame to want to be better, using that blame to use his life force that was no longer on the earth to do more and do better in order to be the change that I would want to receive.
Right.
So it's like as if I was taking his essence and I'm going to do what I can do to change. And I'm going to do that much more in which he could have done if he was still here, if he turned his life around. More than the average.
Yes. That's powerful. And something that you brought out, Khristopher, that, I think was worth saying, and I'm glad you said it, because oftentimes, we get this view of drug addiction when people are addicted to particular drugs, that they're not functioning or that they don't have a functioning capability. But like you were saying, your mother was able to still function. Y'all were able to be taken care of. But oftentimes on TV and like you said, there's another side of the spectrum that they show where the person is a zombie. They can't do anything at all. But I just think that is a great enlightenment to kind of let the listeners know that, they're just like they say, there's functioning alcoholics, they're functioning drug addicts, and so we don't recognize that often. One of the questions I had wanted to ask you was, do you believe that, many people, they try to treat their mental health issues with drugs? And if so, explain why. Because I kind of heard that before, that, when we have mental health issues and we don't deal with those issues, or we don't even, and sometimes we're not even aware that may be an issue, then individuals may go to drugs to try to ease and cope with that.
Yes, and I believe that 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 we need to reduce the stigma associated with it. People don't choose to be in these lifestyles. They don't choose to do the damage that they might do in such situations. And I feel like a lot of times they're judged and they feel judged, so they don't actively seek help, or they shy away from help because they're judging me, or they don't understand my plight. I know many clients that don't even want to see a therapist that doesn't even have a similar background. They feel like that person doesn't understand my problem, therefore they can't help me with my problems.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I had heard someone say one time that oftentimes, they will use the drugs to cope with problems. I actually know a few people that have done that, where they'll take the prescription drugs that they have on the street. I can't think of the name of it, but it just kind of relaxes them and they take it and it helps them to go to sleep. And they just take it constantly to numb themselves out so they don't have to deal with the struggles that they go through during the day, or what they have to deal with daily.
I know a lot of clients that abuse prescription drugs or amplify their symptoms so they can actively abuse their prescription drugs. Some of the drugs that you might be talking about might be Ativan, or Klonopin, or Xanax.
Yeah, I had a client, and I used to work with social services. And sometimes they would go to the doctor and say they have pain for this and pain for this and pain for that, when really they just wanted it to try to self-medicate mentally. And so it's a big.
And if only they could, work on strategies to self-medicate, utilizing skills. I mean, sometimes you need a combination of both medicine and skills in order to get a better, firm foundation in the skills in order for you to address your ills, right?
Right. Now, while you saying that, you've worked to develop a cost-effective strategy to assist those that have been impacted by the mental health symptoms and help them recover appropriately. Tell us a little bit more about your strategy.
My strategy is basically meet people where they are. You don't necessarily have to come into an office to get therapy. I use community-based therapy. Community-based means in order to address your issues where you're at. This way, I actually have a better snapshot of what's going on in your world. As you may come into the office and say, everything is hunky-dory, but you can't necessarily tell me that when I see a police tape in front of your building and I see a chalk outline in the parking lot, and I see news flashes of what's going on in your neighborhood currently, or when I see that, your lights are off, or when I see that, your medicine is the same pill that I know you got filled 20 days ago, but it has just as many pills that when you first got it from the pharmacy. I can see these things and I can have a better understanding of what strategies I need to use in order to help you meet your treatment goals and meet your personal goals, because they're not my goals. They're your goals. And if you want to be better, then I'm going to assist you with getting the strategies, getting the skills in order for you to be better. And if what I'm doing is not working, then I modify accordingly. I meet you where you're at.
That's good. That's really good. And that's what we need. We need people who can meet us where we are, and not, and something you said earlier, even you can't remember, you can't forget where you came from. People want people that are real and are tangible and that are transparent. And when you're able to be that, they're more receptive to receive what you have to say to them, because they feel like you understand their plight and what they're going through. I just think that's.
And they feel that they won't be, and that understanding, free of stigma, free of judgment, means that I'm willing to do the work, and I don't feel like I'm being forced or cornered into doing the work because some professional or someone on a higher stair than I'm on indicates that's what I need to do. I mean, I self-disclose to a certain extent so people know that, when I'm talking to you, I might as well just be talking to myself on some of these issues, because I'm going through the same stuff in many aspects as you. I think that's what the beauty of being a therapist like me does, because I don't put myself in such a place of being that I can't understand where you're coming from. That could be my uncle. That could be my brother. It hurts just the same.
That's so true. We have to have that form of empathy and compassion, to be able to help. I believe a true people who are really more compassionate and empathetic can really be better. They can better serve those that have been where we may have been. And it's very important that we are able to relate and that they can be comfortable with you so that they have some normalcy to know, okay, I can get through this thing. And I think that's very important. So one of the things that I really been waiting to get in, because we're dealing with a lot of issues, even in our community now, with gangs and gang activity. And there's a lot of things that go on because of the gang activity. But how does addiction issues correlate with gang activity?
Right. And it's like the people, gangs ain't what they was 20 years ago when I was acting in gangs. I mean, it's almost like they affiliate with a flag, or they affiliate with a group, a gang, or whatever, but they don't understand the essence of why these gangs might have originally formed or the purpose of it. When I see two different sets of Crips just killing each other with no given purpose, shooting each other, blowing up their next door neighbors from each project is right next door to each other, it just doesn't make sense, and it's because they don't have no purpose. They don't have no reason to live. Their mom wasn't adequately in support of them. But we're not even going to blame the mom. Where was the dad? He wasn't adequately supporting them in their their wellness, giving them. They say your values. You get your values by age 5. So by age 5, you need to have a certain set of values. And if your mom your mom or dad or your grandmother or your grand aunt, we use villages here in our system. You don't always have to rely on the original parents. As our grandparents take up the role sometimes. Our aunts and our uncles take up the role sometimes. But if they don't give us the values we need, you know what I'm saying? If all we've seen is the fast life, the fast trash, if we didn't see, why would my mom choose drugs over me? And if we don't see love, then we're not going to adequately be able to navigate this world in a loving way. We don't care about you. We don't care about ourselves.
Khristopher, that's so good. And I listeners, I hope you're listening to that. I have a lot of young men that I come in contact with often, even through the church sometime. And because they didn't have that love, or because they didn't have that family dynamics, that's why they end up actually going into gang activities. And some of them, they still talk to me. I still talk to them. Some of them now, they love God, but they're involved in this gang activity. And I even talked to my young nephew and nieces, and they're probably only 6 and 7, and some of the young boys from the church. And I talked to them and I said, your life is more than a piece of paper. Your life is more. And I try to encourage them. Do you want to live purposeful? Do you want to live and be better? Or do you want to live this life where you don't know what could or could not happen to you? And so even at a young age, I try to instill that into them. And I think it's important for us to understand that we have to, one person can't do it alone. It takes the whole community in order to be able to show that love and support, and to get involved and not be afraid to get involved, not be afraid to love those that have actually been initiated into the different gangs. And so to hear that even you were in the gang at the time, just let the listeners know, how were you able to survive a gang infested neighborhood? What were some tools that or things that happened for you to be able to survive in that neighborhood?
I grew up reading. That was probably one of the most basic values my parents gave me: reading, encyclopedias, books, magazines. All these things were always throughout our house. So I was always in a book. My escape, in many ways, with these books. I used to love Greek mythology. I still to this day love it. So in these gangs, when I was in a gang, I didn't necessarily have to be a hardcore member of the gang. I didn't have to do some of the more hardcore things. I was, in many ways, protected by the older gang members who saw something in me. You know what I'm saying? Something different. They understood why I might have chose that particular lifestyle. But in essence, they didn't really want me to get into the harder stuff. So I didn't have the same gang experience that, let's say, someone else might have. My stuff might be more penny ante. I was known to my gang as a more of a mouthpiece. I was a poet. I was a rapper. So I was the musical assassin, you would say. I would glorify or say what we needed to say on these. This is way back in the day. On these mixtapes, you know what I'm saying? I would talk about the glorious Crip Nation
Yeah.
on these mixtapes, and that was basically what it is. They had to protect the music. They had to protect the rapper, the DJ. You know, me and my DJ Sean. You know what I'm saying? Because we the ones who, I guess, in many ways, promoted and marketed the gang through music. So my experience, like I said, in many ways, was very different than someone else's because of my unique talent. When I did get into dirt, I mean, it was just about being mindful, you know what I'm saying? Being aware of where you are and always, God, what they say, blessed and highly favored. I am truly blessed and highly favored because I've been through some things that nobody, no, way should have got out of. In many ways, on paper, I shouldn't even be here today. But God saw something in me, or God had a purpose for me, and I think I had to go through that to get here in order to fulfill such a purpose.
And that's and one thing you said earlier is they have no purpose. And when you don't have a purpose, then you let others tell you what your purpose is. And so it is important, even as they're growing up, and I believe this is wholeheartedly, that you love to read, and reading was escape for you, and you still love that to this day. And sometimes we don't realize, and I tell the young people all the time, that you got to hone in on your gift, and take that gift and use it for the glory of God. Take that gift and let your gift bless others, so that they can have hope. But many times today, a lot of the gangs now, it's just, about the money, and about, not all of them, but a lot of it, across the young people that I come across, they love it because it's the money, and it's the money aspect. They can buy what they want. They can do what they desire to do, but it's more than just that. And they're young, in middle school, and I think 5th grade on up. And so that is an issue. And I think that if we are able to encourage them even more, that would be able to help them, and I was thinking about that too. How is drugs and gangs related? Now, I know a lot of gangs, they do sell drugs. So give us a little bit more information about how gangs and drugs are related.
Gangs and drugs are related because that's the lucrative income that funds the lifestyle. It's the criminal element. It's basically, gangs wanted to be what they called mirror images in some way to what was the mafia back in the day. They wanted to be the Al Capones and the Beanie Siegels. That's what they personified themselves in many ways. But always the flosser, always the the person that wants to have all the gold and all that stuff. We didn't use our money adequately, or we didn't use our money appropriately. If you know anything about rich people, they really dress down, don't they?
They don't be flashy,
we really dress up.
Yeah.
The Louis Vuitton and all that. Donald Trump, Bill Gates does not own any Louis Vuitton, and if he does, it's only for special occasions. You will normally see him in, regular khaki, a sweater, and a button-up shirt with a tie. His glasses cost no more than $250. We'll go out and buy some aviators for $1,050. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why? Because we think that's what it takes to be rich. But back to your question. Back to your question is that it fed that income. It gave the people purpose. In fact, the gangs probably couldn't survive if they didn't have that lucrative income, because that's the only thing that would really draw you to the gang. In many cases, you wanted to be rich. You wanted to make money. There's no money in your neighborhood. There's no money in your father doesn't bring any money into the household. Your mama relies on Section 8 or SSI income. There's no money in the house. What can I do? Boom, here's money. You do this, and this. You got money. You can get a new house. You could pay your mama's bills. You can get your mama clothes. You can get yourself clothes. You can wear these nice Air Force Jordan 14s instead of these Bobos that you're wearing, or, you know what I'm saying, or whatever your mom was able to afford at the time.
That's why I tell them again, over and over again, that, your life is not worth these material things. Your life is more than that.
Right.
And I keep instilling that into them. And I think that's what I was going to ask you as well. What can we do as in the community to encourage our youth to do other things besides enter into gangs? What is the step that we could take in order to better help our young people?
Well, a lot of times when you look at these communities that these youth are in, they have all kind of programs for elementary, but then you turn around and then once they get in middle school, there's very little programs for them. So they're idle. And what is idle things? Idle hands is the devil's plaything, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what they say. It's not in the Bible, but that's
not in the Bible, but
say.
You hear it. Yeah. Yeah.
And, with that, if they're idle, they don't have anything to do, and they're being influenced by negative peers. I think social media and these use of cell phones can be a high contributor to negative lifestyles and maladaptive behaviors. But for the most part, if they don't have nothing to do, they're going to have these issues. Okay, let's look at other youth in comparison. The other youth in comparison might go to the YMCA, and they might be in a boys-girls club. Boom, they don't fall into the trap of gangs because they had something to do. They had a purposeful life. But in other areas, we may be wellness recovery programs, deserts, where that hood may not have that kind of program, or, oh, that's square, I'm not going to that. Instead of
back in the day, that's how it was. You're going to do what I say or you're going to get out. That's just how it was.
And that's the way it should be. But parents each generation becomes less and less of a parent over time. And I don't know why that is. Is it the social grooming of our educational system? Is it I can't say that parents are younger. My mama had kids younger than I had kids. My kids have yet to have kids, and they're way older than I was when I started having kids.
That's so true. And I was thinking about that even in the communities. A strong community has things for youth, and because they're in the next generation. And so having things catered, and you're so right. I used to teach teen pregnancy prevention, and all the time, most people would deal with the girls, but in the particular program that I worked in, we dealt with the girls and the guys so that we could meet the needs of them. We didn't just work with the elementary, but we were able to work with the middle and the high school. And you begin to see, because we would do scientific based curriculum, you would be able to see the changes in deterring of teen pregnancy prevention. And I believe it's the same thing with working with the young people as well, in educating them to be able to do other things and have things for them to do. That's one thing I can say about the church that I used to go to when I was younger. They always kept us doing something. They always kept us traveling. And so when I began to work my job and I got out of college, I said, I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to take those that are at risk, because I used to work at the alternative school, and I wanted to show them that there's more out there than where they are currently at. And I had a young guy tell me this recently. He said, Pastor, he said, you show me a whole different world I've never seen before. And I appreciate that, because sometimes we get so caught in our own little culture, in our own little city, that we don't realize that it's much more out there. But we have to have people that are willing to stretch out and help others and help the young people to see that there's more out there than just where they are.
Right. And it's like those types of programs, those types of churches, those type of wellness groups, city funding. Like, for instance, my friend, she's a commissioner here in Durham, and they allocate funding for such things.
Right.
But you look at the budget, it's very weak in those aspects. But then you see it's very strong regarding maybe upgrading the jail or updating the court system, or, maybe increasing support around shelter systems or something like that. Very, very few programs to address the needs of the children, the youth, so that they don't even fall into those traps that need those type of supports later.
That is so true. And even here in my city, I say, Lord, as you continue to bless me, that is going to be my focus, because I knew it brought me out of the neighborhood that I was in, and we need that, so if you have those resources to be able to filter in to help in the community, because here, it's a lot of buildings coming in for jobs and a lot of funding coming in for hotels and, different things like that. But we need those programs and the funding to be able to help our young people even more. And I believe this will help as well to deter them from gangs, because they will have something to look up to and to look for. We won't reach every single one, but we will reach many if we are able to find the resources in order to feed in to helping the young people as well, even in the mental health field, because there's not a lot in the mental health field. My brother deals with mental health, and they can only help you to an extent, and it's good. And I'm glad about the programs that you are doing and the strategies that you're doing, because there becomes a lack sometimes in the mental health system. But I believe that you are at a place where you're trying to do more, and I see it, to where you have strategies to be able to connect those in the community that feel like they can't go to the mental health system. And we need that as well, because if you don't take care of your mental health, if you don't take care of that, and if we don't reach out to our young people, you're going to have crime, you're going to have issues. And so when we learn how to deal with those particular things and find resources and come up with solutions regarding that, then I think we will see a better community. Do you agree with that, Khristopher?
I do agree. There's a statistic that says that they base prison systems, building jails and things like that, off achievement scores by the time the kids reach third grade. So by third grade, they say if the kids have a certain achievement score, which apparently has to be low, then they know, we're going to need this many more jails or this many more prisons. Instead of, letting that be an active plan on, well, we need more support regarding getting this person the education they need or getting the skills they need in order for them to be successful, and every time I hear that statistic, I used to say, okay, well, that makes sense, until I saw the bigger picture. Instead of using those funds for those, use these funds to give these kids extra support.
Right.
Use these funds to give these kids, extra educational opportunities. Maybe pay the teachers more and reduce the teachers' class size.
Right.
That would be more effective in some cases. Because I know when I was a teacher, I had a small classroom, and my children did very well. But when I seen my other people years later, after I retired and decided to do mental health instead, and I seen their classroom size, I saw how ineffective they were. The sweet spot is probably 15 or 16. Anything after that, if you don't have a teacher aide, I don't know how you're going to manage that classroom and help them learn. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
How are you going to be able to do 101 when you have to split yourself between that many children?
That's so true. And they need that one-on-one, and it shouldn't be just about testing and getting them to get test scores, but you have to be able to really impact them
and teach them according to their learning style. Everybody don't learn off of looking at a whiteboard or writing on a piece of paper. Culturally, our background indicates that we learn communally. That's still embedded in our gene code. And I remember when I was in college, and I might have been taking a course, and I'd be like, "Ooh, this is hard." And then, I got with my peers who was having some of the same issues with the course material, and we decided to make a study cohort, and we would study on campus, like on our lunch breaks or in between classes or whatever. And boom, even the ones that we would air quote call the dumbest of us all excelled because they learned in a way that made sense to them. And they may not remember if they read it out loud and heard their own voice, but they remember Felipe's voice, or they remember Chaka's voice, or they remember Sharkita's voice, and it resonated more when they was reading. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe they studied more because they didn't want to be looking suspect in this study group. I don't know what the formula might have been. I know for myself, yes, I did study more because I didn't want to look like the dummy in the group.
Right. That's true. And we do learn better, I think, through community style. Even when I did the activities with the young people during the teen pregnancy prevention, we did a lot of community work. We did a lot of role playing. We got actually involved in it, and they really took it home and remembered it and learned it better. So that's so true.
Right.
That is
Right.
so true.
That hands-on interactive learning.
Mhm.
Now we need more schools like that. Math, yeah, I probably can learn that. Math, I can learn on my own, easy. Reading, easy. You know what I'm saying? Complicated scientific or historical things that I can't really see or do on a day-to-day basis that are kind of foreign to me, not so much, right?
Mhm.
And that just goes back to the presence or the essence of meeting people where they're at. You know what I'm saying? That we need to build on people's strengths as we address what we may deem weaknesses.
That's
I
so
remember I was working with a client one time, and he was struggling with his addiction. You know what I'm saying? So we had to work through his addiction. And of course, I would rely on his strengths. This guy had his schizophrenic breakdown when he was in his second year at DeVry. You know what I'm saying? He was 50-something years old. So, if he was at DeVry, as smart as I might be, I know I couldn't do anything at DeVry. You know what I'm saying? So you knew he had an intelligence in him that I could capitalize on in his sessions, that I could show him that he had the potential, that he had the wherewithal to do the things he needed to do to get past this addiction, right?
right.
And then, found out he had a CDL license at one time. I've helped somebody study for a CDL before. Whoa. Way beyond anything I could comprehend.
Right. A lot of
and all that. That's an intelligence that I consider you highly intelligent if you could pass the CDL. And oftentimes we see these truck drivers, they just seem like very homely men that don't seem of any great intelligence. But like I said, we zoom out. And I promise you, if you or I, no offense, doctor, try to take a CDL test, even if we did study for 3 or 6 months, we would not do well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I know several people with CDL license, and they had to study. I mean, it was very difficult, very difficult. That's so true. But, thank you so much, Khristopher, for just being with us today and giving us some information on what we could do in order to understand addiction, as well as helping those young people in the community that may be desiring to be in a gang or that is already in a gang. But would you tell us how the listeners could get in touch with you? Would you give us a little bit more information about how they could get in touch with you?
Oh, of course. You know what I'm saying? Everything is more than therapy, more than therapy, morethan-therapy.org, more than therapy on Facebook, more than therapy on Instagram, more than therapy on TikTok, and all that. More than therapy. And yes, there is a company that's also called More Than Therapy. I consider them my sister company, even though we don't know each other like that. They're out of Virginia. And you know what? Link with them too, because they're doing great things too.
That's great. And you guys, you've heard Khristopher on today, so go check him out on his website to find out more information about what he does and just to be able to connect with him. For everyone that's listening today, I believe and know that you will find some information on there that will be helpful to you. And so go and check out his website to find out more information. And listeners, if you know someone that's struggling with mental health issues or, dealing with gangs or have an addiction, try to encourage them to get the help that they need, and don't just push them there, but you help them in a loving way to be able to take them to get the help that they need, those that desire help, because mental health is a big issue, gangs is a big issue, and drugs is a big issue. But if we come together as a community and able to work together, then we will begin to see changes in our communities. So with that being said, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Tasty Tidbits with Dr. Tiffany Watkins. If you're enjoying the show, feel free to subscribe, rate, and share with your friends. To learn more about Dr. Tiffany, check out her blog on goodreads.com or visit her website at www.renewedfaithministriesinc.com. Until next time, stay blessed.